Welcome to the Read Down, your weekly progressive political hot take by the Stonewall Democratic Club. On today's episode, we'll discuss coups, stimuli, and vaccines. Of course, we will read the GOP for filth, as usual, and give you the latest on the Biden transition with our very special guest, Godfrey Santos Plata. All of this and more on the Read Down.
Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, próspero año y felicidad. Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, próspero año y felicidad.
I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Read Down, your weekly progressive political hot take by the Stonewall Democratic Club. I am your host this evening, Alex Mahajer, and I am so excited to welcome to the program my co-host, Jonathan Walsh.
Hey, I have to real quick. Every Christmas, like in the beginning of the season, when Feliz Navidad would come on the radio, my mom would always be like, he's blind, right? Amazing.
Huh.
Jose Feliciano's blind.
The more you know. Good to know.
It's
Good
true.
to know.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jonathan. I'm loving your sensible turtleneck.
Thank you so much.
And you told me that you had a lot of coffee before the program, so it's going to be a week. Welcome.
There we go.
And I'd like to welcome my other co-hosts, Ebony Murphy-Root.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. I'm a teacher on break, so woo!
Come on, break. I love that for
Ready
you.
for it.
I got to say, I love that for you. Welcome to the program, Ebony. And our very special guest this week is none other than Godfrey Santos Plata.
Hey, y'all. Hello. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. I am counting down until winter break officially begins for me. So glad to join y'all.
Just a couple of days to go. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the program. We've got a very packed show for you. It's the title of the episode is Relief Navidad, or is it? We thought that today we were going to have a stimulus package passed by Congress last night. The Congress passed a $900 billion relief, economic relief / COVID-19 stimulus package. And it was a part of a $2.3 trillion spending bill the Congress passed. And we were getting news about it all day. Checks might go out as soon as next week. And then right before air tonight, we got notification that Donald Trump is now threatening to veto this legislation, which just a cherry on top of his lame duck presidency. So first, before we get into the nuts and bolts of what's in the bill, I'd like to start with you, Jonathan. What are your thoughts here with Trump's threatening of a veto on this package that we've been fighting for and battling out really for weeks and months, and Americans have not had relief since 7 months ago?
Well, I'm glad that you are starting with me because I have to get it out here that Donald Trump has been missing in action this entire time. Okay, so he's been pouting about the election results. He's been surrounding himself with crazy conspiracy theorists who have all these lies swirling around him in order to justify his idea that he somehow won an election that was completely fair and free. So that's what's been consuming his mind while people are suffering and we needed relief and we needed action. One of the only reasons why this is even happening right now is because the GOP is kind of reading the room and realizing that they're in trouble in Georgia, that David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler could very easily, and we hope, lose their seats. So they're kind of they're conjuring up a plan that they think is going to actually save them those 2 seats. Now, where Trump has been is, beyond me, aside from just worrying about the election results, right? He hasn't been part of these talks. So for him to all of a sudden chime up and say, oh, I want a $2,000 check to go out to everybody instead of $600, listen, fantastic. That would be a huge improvement. Nancy Pelosi has already tweeted out tonight that she's ready to go. We can see this happen. It can be brought to the floor immediately. But is he sincere? I don't think so. And it should be noted that the stimulus package was passed by a veto-proof majority, but it's more likely that this is probably just going to sit on his desk and collect dust until January 20th. And that's really such a shame.
Really unbelievable. Ebony, thoughts on this threat of obstruction by Trump in his final couple weeks here before he's finally out the door?
This is not leading from behind. This is leading from behind the golf course at Mar-a-Lago, wherever the heck he is. People were complaining that $600 wasn't a ton of money, and it's not, but I was getting ready to pay a few bills with that $600. This is just him leaving a huge mess in his wake. This is what he does. This is so disappointing. It's the holiday season. People have bills to pay, and what a total disappointment. I cannot be more enraged.
Godfrey, what do you think? Is Trump being petulant? Is this just to get back at us for his election law?
Absolutely. This is another temper tantrum. This is unfortunately nothing new from what we know about his behavior. If anything, I know that today, for example, President-elect Biden was speaking about this particular package that's coming out, but he also was receiving lots of different questions from reporters about all sorts of things having to do with Russia, having to do with appointing folks to his cabinet, et cetera. He's already stepping into the presidency because he already knows that Trump isn't providing that right now. And so something like this from Trump is really just fighting for attention, honestly.
And Ebony mentioned Mar-a-Lago, and I just want to throw in there that his neighbors at Mar-a-Lago estate are actually suing him to prevent him from moving there after he leaves the White House. They are saying that in 1993, he signed an agreement saying that he would never use Mar-a-Lago as a personal residence, and they are holding him to it. Your neighbors at Mar-a-Lago don't even want you, okay? It's time to go back to the Kremlin where you were born and belong.
All I can think of is Ivanka and Jared's neighbor in the beginning. Remember during I can't remember exactly when this happened, but there were protests outside their home in the DC area. Her champagne glass with her fur coat, just enjoying every moment. And to me, when you say these neighbors near Mar-a-Lago, I just picture 300 of her.
The fancy lady in the furs. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Inside with my Chardonnay and
fancy furs and champagne.
Yeah, that's right. Champagne or Chardonnay, either way.
Whichever.
Well, I'll have some Perrier. Sparkling water will be there.
Yes.
Right.
Look, so this is the relief package that now Trump is threatening to not sign. The checks were supposed to go out as early as next week. They are $600 checks for anyone making under $75,000 a year. That's important to note. So if you make above that, you're phased out. And there are $600 stipends for each child if you have a child. It's very important to note that this is $600 less than Americans received back when the CARES Act first passed. So what the American Congress is basically saying is that Americans can survive on a total of $1,800 per year in the face of an economic crisis. And one of the things that's not on this outline, but I want to know, that Republicans battled for as a part of this package, and it is in there, is tax deductions for 3 martini lunches. So that if you go and have a, quote, they're called 3 martini lunches, a corporate lunch, you can write that off in your taxes. That 3 martini lunch oftentimes will be the equivalent of 1 American's stimulus check. So that's what the Republicans are out here fighting for. And that just, got me good. But the bill doesn't doesn't help private sector or public sectors. It doesn't help local or state governments. But the bill does help some sectors. Where, Jonathan, do you think that the bill came up short, and where do you think it met the moment?
Well, first of all, as far as the 3 martini lunch goes, like I'll do it. Okay, like I'll take it, and I'll probably write that off. So whoever wants to join me, everyone on this panel, let's go ahead and do that. That sounds very bougie of me, but you're going to give it to me. Okay. But what I will say is that it's very important, very clear that when we say, you know, this is what Congress is giving us, we have to be a little bit more honest about exactly what this is. This is a Republican plan. The $600 comes from Stephen Mnuchin. What we wanted were closer to the $2,000 a month. We wanted monthly payments to be backdated. We have John who has a comment there. It's quite a big one, but you know, I'll paraphrase what he's saying. There are a lot of bad things about this. I mean, we have a lot of people who are out of work. The $600 isn't going to do a damn thing. And I'm kind of focusing on that because I really kind of feel like we're looking at economic circumstances from a couple years ago, right? So if your 2018 or 2019 taxes reflect that you made under $75,000, then you're going to get that $600. But there are plenty of people who made a great salary last year, and that's all been wiped away. And where's the relief for those people? You know, you have people who have taken jobs that don't pay as much. You have people who are scraping by. You have people who are independent contractors, people who work in restaurants. It's not doing enough. And I will also say that it cuts short of giving cities and states the aid that they need, and they're completely tapped out. I mean, this is, we're putting everything onto our state governments, and unfortunately, they've been shouldering the burden through this whole crisis in terms of response, and they're getting no relief. So there's a lot of room for improvement, and I'm hoping that this isn't the last stimulus package that we see in this crisis.
Well, Democrats are promising that it won't be, but Republicans obviously took a long time to get to the negotiating table and wanted to do even less than what ended up being in the final bill. Ebony, where did the bill meet the mark, and where did it fall short to you?
I hear that there is some relief for restaurants in there, and we know that so many people work in those sectors, and so I'm hoping it will help those folks out. But I saw a funny tweet that, well, not really that funny, but $600 is what rich people think poor people think is a lot. Even in the least expensive metro areas in the country, $600 is not even 1 month's rent. For some of us, $600 aren't, you know, our student loan payment. So it really is a slap in the face. Like $600, even for the folks, you know, at the bottom of the ladder, what's that going to do for them? Like maybe 2 weeks of holding them over. So it's relief in, you know, the very basic sense of the word. And when you look at other countries who have provided their citizens, right, with real, actual funds to tide them over, this is just shameful what Americans have been conditioned to expect from our government. I'm really just sad about this. And then you have Americans who are like, I don't want anything from my government because they feel like actual relief from the government is a handout. I don't know what to do about this.
It's a payback. It's our money, right? Yeah. We paid into these coffers. This is for us. Like, it's not a handout when you've been putting into it.
They're for tax cuts for the wealthy and for corporations. That's what we pay our taxpayer dollars to. Godfrey, what do you think about this? And why are Americans, I'd love your perspective on why are Americans so reticent to ask and demand what is owed to them that they paid into?
I think we are demanding what is owed to us. I think one thing we have to remember is that all of this is happening because of a public health emergency right now, and Americans are having to, in some counties and states, have to pay out of pocket to get tested, to get their medical work done during all of this as well. I think that's something missing from this conversation. There's those of us who definitely need the money to be able to pay rent, to be able to pay for food, etc. But there are those of us who are also have family members impacted, dying as a result of COVID. And I think like we're missing that part when we're struggling with Congresses going back and forth on this bill. Yeah.
Well, on the one hand, I think I agree with you, but at the same time, there were plenty of Republican senators that were up for re-election that we thought were going to lose in this last election, and they didn't. And I don't understand the dichotomy of what is obviously Republican malfeasance a lot of the time, and voters refusing to unseat their feckless representatives. Very frustrating to me. It's hard to explain. But the bill was held up by some of the GOP, 6 GOP senators who won't be running in 2022. Toomey and maybe Johnson won't be running. But more or less, this was a veto-proof. There were only 6 senators. Those senators were Marsha Blackburn, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Rick Scott, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson. And in the House, it was easily approved, 359 to 53 votes. So Biden says he'll push for more, and all of a sudden, Georgia, the special Senate runoff election in Georgia has become all the more imperative because Biden is going to need a Senate to enact his legislative agenda. And if people want more stimulus, they're going to need to elect these 2 Democratic candidates in Georgia. So, Jonathan, how important did Georgia just become on the news of even Trump's obstructionism with this bill?
Well, I think it's been kind of displayed just exactly what the next 2 years would look like if we don't win Georgia. Like the only reason, and I mentioned this before, but the only reason why we even have a bill that's been passed, by the House and the Senate is because Georgia is so important, because they know that they could lose both seats, right? So they're scared. That's the only reason why they act. If they don't have that fear, then they don't act in the interest of the American public. Democrats actually do want to do something for the people. Like that's our entire agenda is to use government for the benefit of making people's lives better. So we can demonstrate that by showing that this package, not nearly enough. It's not doing enough. If you elect Ossoff and Warnock, Georgia, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a much more comprehensive package, something that's going to be reviewed again in a couple months, as opposed to waiting, 6 to 8 months before there was other action. Like it just kind of sat there out in the open. We'll actually be acting on an ongoing proactive basis, not just reactive at the very last minute, on behalf of the American people. So I think that this just demonstrates that we actually have the ability to do the work, and we will do the work if you elect these 2 people. I'm very encouraged when we look at the early voting totals in Georgia. It seems that it's right on par with what we saw in the general election, and we're even seeing a huge influx of new voters, and we're seeing a very large percentage of Black voters who really helped to deliver the results for Joe Biden in Georgia. So it seems as though we can actually pull something off there, and I'm really hopeful. But it is very important. And if you haven't gotten involved in Georgia, I know that Stonewall, we partner with the West Side Democratic headquarters, and they are doing weekend phone banking. So definitely get involved and see what you can do and donate to the organizations that are actually doing all of the groundwork in Georgia.
Ebony, Jonathan touches on the turnout right now in Georgia. There's a massive turnout for a runoff election, for a non-general, this is basically technically an off general election. There's a huge turnout right now. People are turning out in numbers that are huge and paralleling the November 3rd general election. So do you think people in Georgia understand the weight of the moment? And
I think people get it. They're getting phone calls from all over the country. Their friends are texting them. 67,000 new voters, newly registered voters since November 3rd. I think people get it. We can't just assume that folks down in Georgia aren't paying attention. People are paying attention. They're also really excited about Daniel Blackman, who is running for the public commissioner. I don't think that's a role we have here, but apparently that controls the water. And apparently people in Georgia pay some huge percentage of their average income in their monthly bills, in their monthly like their water bill and their utilities. And so he controls that. And more people voted for him for that third race than for either Warnock or Ossoff. So we need people to vote up ballot for as opposed to down ballot. So people know, they get it. They're paying attention. And I'm just super excited about this because we really, really, really need these 2 seats. And I'm super excited for Georgians that they could maybe be the folks to make this happen. It's not Iowa that's the center of America right now. It's Georgia. And that's super cool.
Thank God.
I'm so pissed off at you, Iowa, because you had Teresa Greenfield and you didn't do it. And we're going to talk about Joni Ernst in just a minute. But Godfrey, a lot of the attacks that we're seeing from appointed incumbent Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler against Reverend Warnock are that he's a radical liberal, he's a socialist, and he's going to defund the police to Georgia and destroy Georgia values. On 2 fronts, this is offensive because one, he's a reverend at the same church, at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Martin Luther King Jr. was a pastor. On the other hand, it's sort of using a campaign tactic that was effective down ballot against congressional Democrats, which was tying him to defund the police. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think it could be potentially harmful to Warnock's bid?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can definitely influence folks who aren't paying attention. But I think what we're going to see instead is the power of organizing that has been happening for years now pay off. I think this is like a last minute messaging strategy to make sure that the Republicans are trying to get as much media as possible, get folks' attention. But, all hail Stacey Abrams, all hail the grassroots organizations right now who are even operating not in coordination with the Democratic Party to make sure that they are getting people of color, queer folks out. Oh my gosh, that was so quick, that graphic. That's amazing. I think that the organizing on the ground that has been happening for years is going to be battling off right now.
I just want to say that organizing, Godfrey, I think we can all agree it's 24/7, 365. Like, you are doing that work constantly. So those organizations, you mentioned Stacey Abrams, Fair Fight, New Georgia Project, like all of these groups that are down there doing the work have been doing the work for years. And that's the key, right? We can't just expect to go show up 6 months before an election and think that we're going to actually change something.
That's right. And I just want to shout out Unite Here, which is a union nationally, of course, and active here in Los Angeles. Unite Here focuses on organizing a lot of hospitality workers. And right now, because the hospitality industry is suffering a lot under COVID, they've really been able to take a look at sort of like what they can do on the bright side of that, which means that now there are workers who they can continue to train and politicize to support on the ground work happening door to door in Georgia right now. They were pivotal in Arizona as well. So shout out to a lot of the unions and organizations there that are able to find the lemonade amongst these awful lemons that were being given this year.
Unite Here, amazing organization.
Totally right.
Unite Here is who I canvassed with in Arizona ahead of the general.
Awesome.
We knocked on doors. Unite Here, an incredible organization of people who talk about organizing, have been on the ground. I think it's just for the general for a decade, plugging away, doing the work to flip Arizona blue. This is not a short-term goal. This is something they have had their eye on for a decade, and it's the vision of. I have goosebumps.
Yeah,
because talking with them when I was there for 3 days, canvassing, realizing these people have been working at this for a decade was really awe-inspiring. And people like Stacey Abrams, who had a vision for her state more than a decade ago, and have been doing work organizing. So I appreciate that, Godfrey, and I think you're right. I think the organizing game on the ground is second to none. But also, I think when we talk about Georgia and the election outcome being what it is, I'm canvassing with Unite Here, Local 11. Thank you.
Yeah, and she's in Georgia. Thank you, Isabel.
Wow.
Hey.
I'm 30 over there.
Oh, but speaking of which, COVID-19, we can't deny the impact that COVID-19 had on the election. Primarily, in my humble opinion, was that it made voting more accessible to people. People were at home, mail-in voting became a thing, and that is why we had such a big turnout, primarily, I think, at least a contributing factor. So it's like, to me, you make access to voting easier, this is what happens. People vote, they vote in bigger numbers, and they guess what? They vote Democratic. Up ticket. Lower to down ticket, we ran into bigger problems. And there's a lot of downloading we have to do about that. But I think that one of the problems was that there's gerrymandering in this country. So the work continues on. But COVID. And speaking of COVID, Moderna has developed a vaccine. This is now the second vaccine approved by the FDA. It's kicking off right as it takes, the kicks off as the right takes a muddled approach. So basically, congressional representatives are getting the vaccine ahead of others. Now that these two vaccines are being distributed to the states for distribution, first to frontline healthcare workers, and then to people in long-term nursing care facilities. They're the top priority, according to the CDC. But today, we see these pictures of Republicans like Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa. We have a picture here of Joni Ernst getting her vaccine. And here's Lindsey Graham getting his vaccine. And, let's be honest. Joni Ernst, this is the same Joni Ernst who was breathlessly putting herself first in line to get the vaccine. This is the same senator who in September was suggesting that doctors are faking COVID-19 deaths to make money, suggesting that it's a hoax, suggesting spreading QAnon conspiracy theories. And these shitbags put themselves at the front of the line to get the vaccine and tweeted out the office of the white the Congress Health Office recommended I get the vaccine, so I'm going to do it because it was recommended. Even though I told you guys it was just a flu and it's not a big deal, I'm just going to get it first. Sorry, is that a big deal? Jonathan Welch, Joni Ernst, have at it.
Okay, Joni Ernst is the person I was actually most disappointed got reelected, because not only was Teresa Greenfield a phenomenal candidate, Ernst has been out there trashing Joe Biden, doing, any number of things I'll never forget during one of there was a hearing in which she tried to influence the Iowa caucuses back in February. So let's not forget all the things that she's done, but she's a completely feckless senator and kind of useless as far as I'm concerned. So not happy that she's going to return to the Senate for 6 years, but especially not happy that she's cut the line. I mean, I understand that that members of Congress, because of continuity of power, have had this vaccine offered to them ahead of the general public, but to basically go out there and say that COVID-19 is any level of a hoax. I don't think Joni Ernst is really saying it's a total hoax, but she has claimed that doctors were faking COVID-19 in order to, get paid more, or whatever the case may be. She just has she doesn't have her facts straight, obviously. And now she gets to skip the line. I think that she should have been pushed all the way to the back, because people like that who push misinformation, who make this anything other than it is, which is just a devastating virus that has decimated our country's livelihood, our economy, the lives of over 300,000 people who we don't get to be with. And not only that, but we don't get to be with our families this holiday season. But I'm sure that she does. I'm sure that all of those people, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, all those people who, have had their things to say about the COVID-19 pandemic and haven't had any of it right, they get to go spend time with their families because, they don't care. I'm so done with this party. I'm so done with these people who basically don't care about being American and just want to, push misinformation in the faces of people because they think that fear is going to help get them reelected. That's all they care about. So it's too bad that they got the vaccine ahead of people who deserve it more.
Ebony Murphy Root, Senator Lindsey Graham, go.
It really is infuriating how these folks try to play both sides of the aisle. You know, America is built on power, and they really kind of try to rub it in our faces that, you know, they have the power and we don't. But I think we should push back against this. Lindsey's got 6 more years. He's kind of in a safe place right now, but I still think we should call him out. We should call out that he tried to imply that it was a hoax. He tried to imply that certain folks were making money off of the virus, and now he's first in line to maintain his own health. And that level of hypocrisy and cravenness is not representative of the folks who lead us. It's I wish I could be clearer right now, but I'm just seeing it right in my face like this is quite nerve-wracking. It's something else right now.
This is, of course, the same Senator Lindsey Graham who said that if a Supreme Court nominee were to come up at the end of Donald Trump's first term, that he would do what he did with Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, and he would say no. And then cravenly, the open, craven hypocrisy is enough to drive me mad. I swear. Godfrey, I shout a lot on this program. Godfrey, Senator Lindsey Graham, the Republicans in Congress, Matt Gaetz, Representative Matt Gaetz, who not only is getting his vaccine first after pushing conspiracy theories, but also is voting to not certify the election on January 6th when the Electoral College vote goes up before Congress to certify. So he's double dipping in the shitbag pool. What are your thoughts on the Republican Party right now?
I mean, I'm just as bad as all three of you. I think the only thing I can salvage maybe here a little bit that might work in our favor is I'm actually just really scared that 50% of the United States is not going to go get their vaccines, even when it's made available to them. I really am afraid of that. And that'll impact this whole idea of even being vaccinated in the first place and our ability as the United States to be able to go back to some semblance of normal mobility around the nation. So I really hate that they've cut in line. At the same time, I hope that that is being broadcasted to whoever needs to see it to be able to inspire them to just go get their shots when they have the opportunity to. Have that mobility and continue to fix this problem through organizing and other ways of having to long-term get Lindsey Graham out of there, et cetera. I that is the thing that I'm hanging on to as they cut in line.
Yeah, I mean, I just exhaled at that. I mean, yeah, I mean, Joe Biden, you did reference Joe Biden's speech earlier today, and he did say, we're not leaving the worst of it behind us. We're about to get into the worst of it right now. And so for people who are tired, and I think he used the word steel your spine, which I thought was very chilling and telling, to steel your spine. And I don't think I will be up to get the vaccine for a very long time. I wish that I were. I wish that the Trump administration had ordered enough doses for us to all get vaccinated. And it's actually making me emotional thinking about, because it's been a long year and I would love to get that vaccine. But you know, for people like me who are waiting patiently, who really want it, you know, and the opportunity should cross your path, just get the vaccine. You know, get the vaccine. There are other people who are patiently waiting, who have people with who have people with comorbidities and who are vulnerable populations who are around them, like their family members, who I'm more worried about than myself. I'm not worried so much about me. I'm worried about the people that I love who could die from it. You know, so I'll be getting it as soon as I can, and I think Godfrey's onto something really important there. You know, when your time comes, let's do this.
I hate to say this, Alex, but like, if there are so many people who, like Godfrey said, who won't get the vaccine, then perhaps that means that those of us who really do can get it sooner. You know, I mean, I hate to think of it that way, because those people also need to be vaccinated, and a significant, or at least a significant portion of them do. But I think that the more the general public goes ahead and does it, you know, people like us here on this panel, you know, we can go ahead and share that with our communities, with our people, And those who we know who are apprehensive, if we say like, I did it, I'm good, I'm fine, like let's go, like we can get back to life, then I think that might change. And I think that the removal of Donald Trump from this whole equation, might make things a little bit clearer down the road.
Well, and thanks, Mackenzie. Wise words, she says. We don't want to be unknown spreaders to other people. Exactly. And how long does the vaccine work for? As I understand it, it's a vaccine. So you're vaccinated. Once you're vaccinated, you're good.
Yeah. Essentially, almost like the flu shot, where there are different strains, but COVID mutates more slowly. So they're able to actually cover you, it seems, for like a few years at least, is what I've read. I am not a public health professional. Okay, I only text with them to get a better understanding.
You do?
Yeah, I text with. I have other public health friends. Okay, Alex, it's not just Dr. Fauci. I wish. Okay, but he's busy vaccinating Santa up at the North Pole.
I'm going to need enough of your attitude. Thanks. Okay, well, President-elect Joe Biden, speaking of instilling public trust in the vaccine, he's now received his vaccine publicly. For me, it was like sort of traumatizing to watch. I was like, no, Grandpa! But he did receive it. And I think that, unfortunately, vaccination has become a partisan issue where one side has been fed conspiracy theories and lies for the entire year about this entire virus that they breathlessly consumed because for God knows why. And on our side, we've been just patiently waiting. And now something that's so not a partisan issue has become partisan, but to do his part to try to assuage the fears of the American public, Joe Biden has received his vaccine publicly. Do you think that this will help? Ebony, curious to know what you think about that.
I do.
Will this help?
You remember a few weeks ago, I had my suspicions. I am a member of a historically marginalized group who's had, medicine weaponized. I feel much better seeing people that I trust get the vaccine. I see targeted outreach to historically marginalized groups, doctors from those groups reaching out to those people and really speaking to them in a clear manner, not being condescending, not trying to sort of target those people because they are being targeted by anti-vaxxers, right? Anti-vaxxers are reaching out to folks who are like, oh, now they want to talk about, the Tuskegee historical medical racism. But I think that reaching out to these people and letting them know, look, this is the research. This is what it's going to do. We have had, tons of deaths from COVID in the Black community. I think people are going to be ready to take this. They don't want to get their grandma sick. They don't want to get their auntie sick. And I think people are going to show up and do their civic duty and get this vaccination and be safe. So I feel much better about it even than I did a month ago with the clear information that's been provided.
What about Republicans, Godfrey? Do you think that Republican voters seeing Joe Biden get his vaccination will be more swayed? Do you think that we have a messaging problem at the top where we just haven't had an absence of leadership so much so that Joe Biden stepping in might assuage people?
Yeah, I was actually thinking a lot about that today because I saw his speech. I think it was around noon today or something like that. And I remember just being caught off guard at how presidential it was, even though he's not yet president. Like he's got like this fancy, very refined logo behind him. The reporters asking him questions, him having exchanges. He responded with authority, even to give the sense that there's a plan forthcoming. And I think this is an attempt to make sure that he's reaching out to anyone who might doubt him simply because he's a Democrat. I really do. I think it's a reminder to the the international public that the United States can have someone who at least can come off on TV as a leader. And I actually do believe that behind the scenes, off camera, he's doing that particular job as well. And I hope to see that, I hope to be reminded as someone who's not part of the Republican Party, that the Republican Party is actually diverse, right? Like a lot of times the folks who get a lot of space on TV, a lot of space on Twitter, are the most severe conservative to the right folks. extremists, things like that. And I think that there's a good portion of the United States that we have to remember really just wants a decent thinker in office, frankly, regardless of party. And I think Joe Biden is playing to that now. So I'm hopeful that it'll work.
Well, your lips to God's ears, but even if it does work, Jonathan, some weird news this week. It looks like the virus has now mutated just in time for us to get our little vaccines. It's mutated. So what I'm hearing is that it's coming from the UK. Particularly, the mutation is being identified in the UK. Not that it's coming from the UK, let me clarify. We have not yet seen the mutation here in the United States, but that's also because the United States has inadequately tested. So we don't know. It could very well be here, but we don't know. Experts say the vaccine will still apply to this, but the vaccine will still apply to this new mutation, but it is a mutation that causes the virus to become much more infectious, not deadlier, but more infectious at a much more rapid rate, 3 times more infectious, which just like, haven't we had enough? So what are your thoughts here on this? And how do we know, like, what's the urgency now? I mean, how does this change the picture?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a year, it's been a year that we've had this, that we've been living with the virus as we know it. So it's not a surprise that it would mutate somewhat. And, fortunately, the scientists who develop these vaccines are much smarter than me, and they have been able to account for, for any of these changes so that we can still be covered with the vaccine. So that is very good news. The makers of these drugs have come out and kind of reassured the public. But I think it reiterates that even if we have a vaccine, we still need to maintain social practices that are going to help us to not transmit this to people we love or people that we don't even know. Stay 6 feet apart, do things outside if you can do things outside, and wear your damn mask. Like, that is just the simplest thing that you can do. So I think if we continue, and we're also at a point where most Americans now say that they wear a mask pretty much, outside the house. So I think that we're getting to a better place with masking, and we need to keep that work up. And I think that's going to be the most important thing when you get this vaccine. It's not over. There's still more that you have to do in order to protect your community.
Amen. Amen. And here. But Ebony, you hear what I hear? Jonathan wrote that. Jonathan wrote that, not me. Could you hear what I hear? Trump and his batshit crazies continue to plot against democracy is literally Jonathan's exact verbatim writing of this outline. Jonathan writes our outlines, everybody. It's even enough for Bill Barr to denounce, but does it matter? Bill Barr's leaving. What do you think? So here's what's up. Donald Trump just filed his 3rd petition before the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to overturn the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision and have the Pennsylvania General Assembly appoint its own electors. This will be the 3rd lawsuit that has come before the Supreme Court. He's lost 2 of the previous 3, and he's lost 59 other lawsuits in state and federal courts, but he's still trying at it. And now we hear that he's meeting with House Republicans yesterday at the White House, led by some of his most ardent nutso congressional supporters and this new Congresswoman-elect Marjorie Greene in Georgia, of all places. Meeting with them to discuss their strategy for halting the congressional certification of the election that's coming up on January 6th. So, Ebony, thoughts on this never-ending coup? We've talked about it on the program, but with all the new news, what are your thoughts here?
What I keep reiterating to my 8th graders is just because a coup is poorly executed doesn't mean it's not an attempted coup. This is wild, okay? Al Gore did not behave this way. Hillary Clinton did not behave this way. And the fact that there are people who are supporting this president in his attempt to overturn the election, which cannot be done, by the way, is wild. I just keep looking at the news like I can't believe that there are people supporting him and encouraging him. Where is Ivanka? Ivanka, hello, with that Chapin and Choate education. Why are you allowing your father to behave like this? Jared, what job do you think you're going to be able to do after? Giuliani, what are you doing? Bill Barr, what is your plan? I just cannot believe that there are educated people who are not like, okay, Grandpa Trump, it's time to take you off the grounds of the White House right now. This is wild behavior. This is incredible that in my lifetime I'm seeing this poorly executed coup. And then we see folks like Chuck Todd, who have these Republican leaders on, who act like this is totally, legit. Like, can you believe that this is happening? Call it out. Coups are illegal. He needs to leave in 3 weeks. He's not staying. It's over. This is wild to me that we're allowing this to go on. And we're just like, okay, we're just following the president's totally wild behavior. Unreal.
Yeah, Godfrey, I feel like we've been hearing about this attempted coup for months, even before the November 3rd election, and now we're just watching and I'm numb to the illegality and criminality and obstructiveness of this president.
We might be. I mean, even earlier today, I called his behavior a tantrum, right? And that kind of elides the seriousness a little bit of what's at stake here. And I hope that our checks and balances are powerful enough to override the tantrum here, but it's a scary possibility, a slim possibility that his coup could get carried out. I think it's worth connecting the dots between what we were just talking about with this new strain of the virus and Trump's behavior right now, because instead of reacting coming out of the UK, we are that have changed the way travelers interact, continuing to just let people go in and out in the ways that were that we have been doing before this mutation happened. And instead of reacting to that, instead of figuring out how to support ourselves from this new mutation, we've got this new Supreme Court case and all of this happening instead. And that is a waste of taxpayer money, going back to that.
I think commenter Kelsey makes a great point. Money, money, money. That's what it's all about. Money, money, money. Donald Trump has raised more than $200 million since the November 3rd election, all under the pretext of defending the election, but none of it is. None of it is going to help defend the Georgia election the way that he claims it is. It's all going to his new PAC that he created for his future political endeavors. And by future political endeavors, I mean to pay the $1 billion of debt that he owes to foreign banks. And I'll note that his personal banker at Deutsche Bank resigned today, suddenly and spontaneously out of nowhere. Well, why ever did she resign, you might ask? Well, I'm not sure, but the Southern District of New York's investigation into Rudy Giuliani certainly stepped up. We know that they are now asking the Department of Justice to get access to his emails. So I am smelling shit hitting the fan really quickly and soon for some of these criminals. And one can only hope that criminality will be addressed by the incoming Justice Department, who we still don't have an appointment by Joe Biden as to who will lead his Justice Department. We are waiting on bated breath, but it is really the last major appointment that we are waiting for, as we heard today, that Miguel Cardena will be appointed to the Department of Education. Miguel Cardena is first-generation American. His parents are Puerto Rican immigrants. He was a public school teacher, taught elementary school, and was an elementary school principal for multiple decades before he became the commissioner of the Connecticut Education Department. And he has been named Joe Biden's pick for education secretary to replace outgoing shitbag Betsy DeVos. And I want to turn this to our resident education girl, Ebony, to give us her thoughts on the pick.
Yes, I do have a master in education, so you can call me Master Ebony, just like we're calling Joe Biden Dr. Biden. I'm not thrilled with this pick. I really wanted a more radical pick. maybe Fenwick from Howard, maybe, Bettina Love. I told you all of those, really exciting picks that I had last week, but at least he's been a classroom teacher. I have to tell you, my friends in Connecticut, especially my elementary school friends, are not thrilled. He was really trying to send those teachers back into the classroom when we really didn't know what was going on with the pandemic. And so they're not thrilled about that. He's definitely someone who's considered not teacher friendly. We have to remember students' learning conditions are the teachers' working conditions. And so I get that Biden maybe didn't want to pick a union person. He didn't want to pick your gal Randy. He didn't want to pick Lily Eskelsen Garcia from either of the two unions, AFT and NEA. Connecticut is ranked third out of the 50 states, but also has huge difference between rich and poor. And so it'll be interesting to see how Cardona can scale up at the federal level. We shall see.
And I'll note, Ebony, Connecticut holds a great deal of student loan burden, that the state is very adversely affected by student loan debt. And Cardona has been very non-committal about student loan forgiveness, which is a thing that's come up. And I want to ask Godfrey his thoughts on that before I turn to Jonathan about his thoughts about the appointments in general, because Jonathan is our resident appointment nut. He loves these appointments. He's on it. He is on it. He texts me before I even wake up, this is the appointment to this position. I'm like, okay, girl, I'm asleep. So I want to turn it to you, but Godfrey, what are your thoughts on Cardina for education and do you think student loan forgiveness should be something that people press for him because has been non-committal about this specific issue?
Yeah, yes to the latter, for all reasons. We started this conversation talking about the need for more than $600, and part of the need for more than $600 is because the amount of debt that people are in, even before they are graduates with any sort of degree. I need to reach out to Connecticut friends that know a little bit more about his history. I appreciate Ebony for lifting up what she's already been hearing from folks on the ground over there. I think we see the continuation of the Biden strategy of choosing relatively safely. I think he's really trying to play to this middle where potentially there are going to be folks who even win over Republicans to trust into a federal government again that is led by the opposite party. I think the other thing that we're seeing here that kind of irks me is a lot of checking off boxes for diversity's sake, potentially. And I know that is extremely complicated, probably behind the scenes. The number of people going through vetting processes right now and supporting vetting processes, and having to field different lobbying groups, et cetera, representing various caucuses is probably wild. And I'm not jealous of those folks having to choose one person for each of these important cabinet seats right now. But I am seeing the balance of safe while checking off diversity boxes, and kind of like what Ebony was saying, just leaves you a little bit unsatisfied if you do have a strong perspective about where education should go.
Yeah, I think I'm personally of the mind that I appreciate that there's diversity in his picks. And I think we're coming from an administration that was all white guys with the exception of a couple where he literally, we talked about it on this program, where he cast a TV show.
Central casting.
And so I appreciate that there's some diversity, but exactly. And so, Jonathan, what are your thoughts so far on the appointments? What are we missing here with regards to the appointments that Joe Biden has made? And then I want to turn to the replacement for Senator Kamala Harris, which we learned today was Alex Padilla, who is the California Secretary of State. And your thoughts on that, Jonathan Walsh?
Okay, well, I have to echo what we were saying about Miguel Cardona, because student loan forgiveness is really the biggest issue that's facing us right now. It's something that, there we go, Mackenzie said it right there. It has to be considered as a viable way, and not just a viable way to boost the economy, but it has to be a priority. We're really hurting. Personally, that would change my life. I know it would change a lot of the lives of the people that I know. So that's something that I think need to push the new education secretary on. So frankly, our work is not done. We've voted Joe Biden in. He's selecting a cabinet that I do think is excellent. I think on the whole, this is it's a diverse cabinet. One of the things that he said was he's going to pick a cabinet that looks like the United States of America. And he has stuck to that promise. And I am actually, I would say 80 to 90% happy with what I've seen with the picks so far. That said, that's not the be all end all. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we made in 2009 after Barack Obama became president and when he got in his first year, his first 100 days, was that we just thought he was going to fix everything. We thought that the right people were in place and we can, go to brunch. Well, that's not how it works. Like, we have to be in the fight every day. Like I was saying with organizing, it's 24/7, 365. The issues also need to get that kind of attention. So we need to organize around student debt forgiveness and make sure that that's a priority. So that's how I feel about education. Pick, but we can push him and we should push him. And I think that that needs to be a priority for us. Next up, I want to see Justice Doug Jones. I'm really hoping that he ends up as Attorney General. I think he would be a phenomenal pick, but I'm also really curious to see who gets Secretary of Labor, because the cabinet is going to take a full-bodied approach to all the issues that are affecting us. Climate, economy, COVID. So it's going to be all around, how can we help each other? How can the departments really work together? So I'm interested to see that. I am thrilled, and I don't know if we talked about this before, but Deb Haaland being the Secretary of the Interior, the first Native American to be a cabinet member, long overdue, and especially someone who is going to oversee protected lands. It's such a phenomenal pick. So I'm really thrilled about that. Now, locally, we were talking about Alex Padilla. I wasn't that thrilled that much. I am happy that finally there will be Latino representation in California in the Senate, but to lose a Black woman out of the Senate, I'm looking more at the Senate as a body versus, what our state actually is. And just the two people who represent our state. And I do think that not having a Black woman's voice in the United States Senate is just such a shame. So I was really hoping that we would see an appointment that would keep that a very important voice in the United States Senate. And I think that just pushes us further to take a look at 2022 and who we can possibly elect in some of these states where we have opportunities. So on the whole, I'm happy, but I think everything needs improvement, and it's just more ammunition for us all to stay in the fight.
And Ebony, we're running out of time. I just want to touch base with Ebony and Godfrey first, and then we'll do very short reads this week. So Ebony, your thoughts on Alex Padilla, who's Governor Gavin Newsom's replacement pick he's the Secretary of State. He will take Senator Kamala Harris's Senate seat in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, he's going to do a great job. We wanted a Black woman in the seat. That's not what Gavin did. We're going to continue to push. I don't know if I see Dianne Feinstein fulfilling this whole 6 years. I'm just going to say that. And so there's more room for representation. Alex Padilla was the youngest LA City Council president ever, I think. And so he's definitely going to represent all of us quite well. And so I'll talk more about that later. But, sometimes we're disappointed. We don't get what we want. I think he's going to do a great job.
Godfrey, there has now been a replacement for Alex Padilla, a replacement named for Alex Padilla as Secretary of State. And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, breaking news as of 2 hours ago, Dr. Shirley Weber, Assembly member coming out of San Diego, has been appointed by the governor to be the replacement for Alex Padilla, which is super excited considering everything that Jonathan just mentioned around what seemed like a sidelining of Black representation. Dr. Weber is a Black woman. I think one thing that I'm really excited about is she's really championed police accountability at the state level. And I'm hoping that what that translates to in terms of the expansion and protection of voting rights is the consideration that Black folks, including incarcerated Black folks, and incarcerated folks in general, have often been the target of voter suppression. And so I'm really excited for her to take that on. I am concerned that the Assembly member has really lost a powerful education voice and a powerful police accountability voice at the same time.
Fantastic. All right, it is that time of the week. It is that time of the episode. We're running out of time, so we're going to keep it really short this week. The library is open, y'all. This is your chance to read somebody for filth, to have a soapbox, to really speak your mind about something that's important to you. I'd like to start with Jonathan Welch. Jonathan, who are you reading this week?
I'm reading the shitty people that I see on social media who say stupid, lazy, misogynistic things about how Nancy Pelosi should have been responsible for better relief. Let me remind you all that the Democrats in Congress passed the HEROES Act, and it sat on Mitch McConnell's desk and collected dust for months. So we wanted relief. Pelosi wanted greater relief. This is what we got. Unfortunately, it's not enough, and we have to keep pushing further and harder, but it's not her fault. Let's direct blame at the people who deserve the blame, Mitch McConnell and GOP senators. I'm tired of lazy takes on the people who are actually trying to help us. So that's kind of my read. We also got a comment that I just want to say. What about people who paid their student loans? When I was saying that student loan debt is something that needs to be tackled.
No,
if you paid your student loans,
don't take
what?
my read.
Oh, okay.
You already had one.
You can take it, Alex. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, Ebony Murphy-Root, who are you reading this week?
My read this week is following up the pick of Padilla. My read is against the people who would try to play Black folks, Latinos, our Asian American friends, Native Americans against one another as if there is a pie, right? There's not. There's more than enough power in America to go around. And so for my Latinx friends who are thrilled about this Padilla pick, I'm thrilled too. I think Black women should be in charge of everything. And so, it's going to happen. There will be more Black women in the Senate. We should not let ourselves get roped into this idea that we need to fight, right? We are going to fight for one another, and we're going to make sure that we share this power in America. Black folks, Latinx folks are not one another's enemies, and I'm not going to play this game, okay? Like when I have an issue, it's my, Latinx sisters who show up for me, my Asian American sisters who show up for me, gay folks who show up for me, and so I'm not going to play these games as if, there's only a little bit to go around. I'm thrilled, and we're not going to fight over power in this way. We're going to share power, and it's going to be a more diverse and inclusive America for all of us.
Ebony, over the summer when I first met you, you gave me the most enlightening education about privilege that I've ever received just in conversation. And I don't know if you remember that conversation for the Stonewall. We'll talk about this more later, but privilege is not a monolith. There are some ways where I am privileged where Jonathan is not. And there are some ways where Jonathan is privileged where Godfrey is not. And it's a circle of life. And it's about extending an olive branch where you are more privileged to ensure that others have as equal an opportunity as you do. So, Godfrey, who would you like to read this week? The library is open. Oh, you know what, Godfrey? Don't look at me like that.
Is it working? There we go. Yeah. The person on my mind is Mayor Garcetti. I appreciate, his constant reach out and consistent communications, and his communications team consistently developing new tools for us. But what I did not need was a new interactive map to be the core announcement of so much of yesterday's COVID speech. It's great. I'm more technologically have access to knowing where COVID is happening. It's happening everywhere is the lesson. So I didn't need a map to tell me that right now. What we needed, and a lot of people are calling for this in Los Angeles right now, is a circuit breaker, right? Like how do we actually begin to take a pause on non-essential services out there? I know that's going to be really hard for folks. And how do we cover for those folks so that we can stop this virus from spreading in Los Angeles?
Amen. Thank you so much. And we're running out of time. I'm going to keep mine really short. This week, I would like to read people like Carol Urbanowsk, our viewer, who asks, what about those who paid their student loans? Or the person who stood on the street corner the other day when I was driving by with a sign trying to slam Gavin Newsom and tell people that the masks are stupid, or I don't know what they were getting at. So it doesn't affect you. Let's hold other people back or hurt other people. Is that what we've become as a society? It's not happening in your backyard. No one in your family has died. So fuck masks, fuck vaccines. These people are nuts. You don't have student loan debt. You were lucky enough to have benefited from having taken them out 20 years ago, maybe, or 30 years ago, when the interest rates were something different, when education cost something different. You're not a part of the millions of people that are held back by over $1.6 trillion of unmanageable student loan debt that has become the next crisis. It doesn't affect you. And so why should we give other people relief? I didn't get it. Love thy neighbor. Let's be kind. Let us be generous. Let us extend the olive branch to the people that are not as privileged as we are. Let us see human suffering and seek to help, seek to heal. It's Christmas. There's a Christmas tree behind me. It's a shitty year. We've all had a traumatic year. It's been a hard year. And we're going to have a lot of downloading to do about the grief and the pain that we've all experienced over the past year. Of being isolated from people we love, of living in fear, of becoming sick or getting other people sick, and not being able to, we took for granted being around a Christmas tree with people we love and celebrating with them. So, Carol, what about the people who paid their student loans? Good for you. I'm really happy that you were able to do that. But other people are suffering. So wear a mask, everybody. Have a very, very Merry Christmas, a happy holiday, a happy Hanukkah, and all the holidays, and a happy New Year. I'd like to thank my co-hosts this week, Jonathan Welch and Ebony Murphy-Root. Thank you so much. Thank you to Godfrey Santos Plata, our special guest this week. Thank you so much to our stage manager, Kate, who just helps just because she loves us and wants to be a help to us. So thank you, Kate. We love you. And thank you all for watching. If you like this program and if you want to learn more about the Stonewall Democratic Club, you too can become a member for only $25 a year. Visit stonewalldems.org/join. We will be back next week, I think. Is that New Year's Eve? I'm not sure.
It's
No.
close,
Okay.
We'll have
It's close. We'll be back next week, and happy holidays, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.